Hello and welcome back to another episode of Magic the Colouring. This is a series where I take popular culture icons, phenomena and just general nonsense and try to argue whereabouts we'd put them in the colour pie within Magic the Gathering. This is a series that I've launched a couple times on the channel and never really committed to doing any kind of regularly. I think the first time I ever did this was like 3 years ago, but people occasionally ask for it in Twitch chat and in the comments to videos, so I'm going to try and bring it back on occasion. Some of them will be talking head versions like this, whilst others will be the more podcasty style previously, with guests and friends of the channel and people coming on to argue their points on topics that they know about. In this episode specifically, I'm trying to ride those algorithm like clicks and whatever's popular at the moment and talk about Tom Nook, the most famous character of Animal Crossing. For those of you who don't know, Animal Crossing just came out on the Switch. How you missed that? I don't really know. It's kind of dominating the popular nerd conversations right now when we're not all complaining about no toilet roll. Tom Nook is essentially one of the main faces of the series, and our boy Nook was robbed of not being in Super Smash Bros. In favour of them adding Isabelle, which was basically an attempt to widen the series audience. It was pure marketing nonsense and did both Tom Nook and KK Slider dirty. Fuck you, Isabelle, you fucking dog. What? Don't look at me like that. She is a dog. She's literally a dog. So who the fuck is Tom Nook anyway? Tom Nook is the storekeeper, entrepreneur, lending service provider and primary adversary of the Animal Crossing series. He is the one that gives you your first home in the original Animal Crossing and subsequent games as well when you first move to town. You don't have the money for the home straight away, so Nook lets you pay him back over time for the property. That's right, he isn't a landlord as some people often misattribute him to be. He is in fact a loan provider. He is both a real estate agent, a mortgagee, or simply put, a fucking bank. And in addition to this, he owns the local store where he'll sell you shit as well. For these reasons, he's often playfully described as a villain by gaming outlets like IGN and, Business Insider. But of course, like any popular opinion on the internet, you will have somebody wearing a fedora down your local game store say, wow, actually, and then list off some contrarian point as if they are a smart motherfucker for saying it. In this case, it's that Tom Nook isn't really a villain, that he's altruistic, offering homeless people homes with a very affordable lifetime loan with 0% interest and no enforceable repayment term. In short, you don't pay any extra on what you've borrowed and you can pay it back whenever. Essentially, if you don't go back to him, you never have to really pay it off. Of course, you need to pay it off to get upgrades and improve your home, so you're incentivized to do so. So in spite of this becoming a pseudo-hipster intellectual counterpoint to what was originally a playful meta joke about the nature of Animal Crossing and how as a franchise it doesn't really have any adversaries or threats or conflict, it still holds truth. In spite of all this, it still holds truth. His lending method is not conventionally the capitalist villain you'd expect. He's not Golden Gecko. So Nook really isn't a bad guy when it comes down to it, and it seems that the creators of the game have moved more and more towards making him relatable and dismissing this villain image, with recent games like Home Designer going as far as to give him a backstory where he gives away the majority of his money to charity, supposedly, and has a fucking orphanage named after him. It's borderline self-fucking parody at this point. Now, the keen-eyed, sharp-witted and heavy Vorthos amongst you might be screaming at the screen right now saying, but Vince, it doesn't matter if he's a villain or not, that doesn't affect what colour he is. And to an extent you are correct, there are both villains and heroes in white. There are both villains and heroes in black. But the reason that this context around his business practices, the perception of them, all those things matter is because, well, his intent helps to tell us and helps us to guide us towards trying to figure out where about within colour pie philosophy he would sit. It's not about whether he's good or bad. It's about what he's trying to do and why. Lastly, we should probably talk about what kind of creature he is. In MTG, many creatures' races are often associated with particular colours. The elephant people of the Loxodon race, for example, are almost exclusively white with a little bit of green, so this gives us a good starting point on when discussing characters like Axel, Big Top and Chai, for example. And yes, I had to go to the Animal Crossing wiki to look up the elephant villagers. I'm not actually the biggest Animal Crossing nerd there is. My background is that I bought and played the original Animal Crossing on GameCube quite a lot upon release, and played a small amount of one of the DS versions, but besides that, I have actually not been super into the series. Yeah, I'll probably pick up the DS version of Animal Crossing at some point in the future, especially once I've finished ripping and tearing through hell. Tom Nook is a tanuki, a Japanese raccoon dog, and the majority of Western audiences will be familiar with it as a suit which Mario wears in multiple titles, originally appearing in Super Mario Bros. 3. It's the one with the raccoon tail that allows you to essentially fly. Tanuki are often shown in folklore or Japanese popular culture as supernatural creatures, tricksters who enjoy to drink and have massive balls. Yeah. They were actually in consideration to be included in Magic the Gathering at one point as a playable race during super early conceptual design phase of Kamigawa. In an article on the Mothership from 2004, 2 weeks after Kamigawa's initial release, Brady Domersmuth, and I hope you have pronounced your name correctly there, opens up about Tanuki almost making it into Kamigawa as the green race. However, he says, and I quote, "The Tanuki stories are bawdy and comical. Tanuki are often represented as drunk and lusty, with oversized private parts and whatnot, not appropriate for Magic. Instead, we got the four-armed snake warriors called the Orochi. We truly live in the darkest or perhaps tamest of timelines. I love the idea of an alternative history here, or universe where Kamigawa is filled with Tanuki creatures with immense bollocks, like huge balls. Wizards of the Coast themselves want to remain faithful to the origin of the story and the culture they're borrowing from, but instead they opt to just not talk about the balls. The balls are in multiple arts, often focal points as the Tanuki jump down from rafters or trees to assassinate their prey, and the balls come towards the screen in a first-person perspective, but not a peek from Wizards. They're just like, we hope that people will eventually grow tired of the testicular might of the Tanuki warriors, but of course they don't, and it becomes a meme throughout the rest of the time that we'd have on this earth. Anyway, Tom Nook is the store owner. He wants you to repay this debt to him, but also buy his shit. He is a shrewd businessman with a dry tone, often laughing too hard at his own jokes and attempting to seem courteous and kind, when in reality, he appears to be quite self-serving. Initially, the first Animal Crossing, he gifts you the first radio that you get and says under his breath that he could never sell the damn thing anyway. For these reasons, I often say he's kind of like a used car salesman, or one of those cold callers asking you if you're recently in a car accident that wasn't your fault. In spite of these economics being far more in line with contemporary ideas of altruism and socially responsible lending, he is still self-serving and opportunistic. He sees a young, naive traveller and he's like, I know what I can do. I can put them into indentured servitude to live. Perhaps this is because he's providing much needed housing to those without it, and he can't provide that for free within the confines of the animal world equivalent of capitalism or whatever it is. Perhaps it's a product of his environment, but that doesn't change which colours we put him into in Magic as far as I'm concerned. Now the problem comes that used car salesmen and insurance brokers and shitty companies taking advantage of cheap labour to hassle you about car accidents you didn't have don't actually exist within Magic or the game. So in which case it's hard to use poor examples in order to peg Tom Nook into a neatly confined thematic hole. So what I've done is I've looked at the closest example to these things. Option 1. Bankers. The only real example of bankers within Magic the Gathering that has any sort of breadth or scope is the Orzhov Syndicate of Ravnica. Most banks within the real world would allow you to breach the terms of your loan when and if you die. Not the Orzhov. They own your fucking soul, if still in debt when you shrug off the mortal coil. They function as the business guild on Ravnica, whilst also loosely pretending to be a church, but instead of a god, they kind of just worship money. So in many ways, the Orzhov are just capitalism and the American dream personified. Bazinga. But the reason the Orzhov are a black-white business is their obsession with traditions, a church-like structure, the use of priests, and their obsession with ghosts in the afterlife, and they pursue debts into the afterlife. So the fact that they're black-white is not only telling us that banking in Magic is black-white, but it's showing us thematically that it's to do with how they deal with banking. Simply slamming Nook into this part of the colour pie seems very loose. Option 2. Merchants. Merchant is an MTG Arena streamer and YouTuber with a voice so deep when he talks my balls ache.
I realized that we didn't have enough big boys.
Wait, not that one? Oh, my bad. Option 2. Merchants. Merchants in Magic the Gathering are for the most part blue, and by that we can see with the illustration here that 5 out of the 8 cards with the word in its name are literally blue. But also when we look at like trade as a word as well, we can discount Balustrade Spy, we have 7 out of 12 examples again falling into blue. It seems that the bureaucracy and the movement of money and goods within an economic structure falls at least thematically within blue's intellectual sphere. Interesting. So I started to think of like obvious examples of business owners within Magic the Gathering. And honestly, I was coming up short, but there was one monolithic example that I could not move away from, I could not shake from my mind once I'd thought of it. Hand outstretched across a table with coin and charter laid upon it, his face a stern one. It's Leopold, emissary of Trest. Now, I thought from what I remember that this dude was a businessman, like exclusively just doing businessy things. That's a very loose term, I know. But he more or less deals in subterfuge and information. As Nick Davidson's 2016 story article says, Leopold will exchange his gathered intel for the right price. So am I saying that Tom Nook is Animal Crossing's very own Leopold? Well, not exactly. The emissary of the Trestian people seems to be arrogant, sure, but he's also all about opulent banquets, displays of wealth, cultural exchanges as he calls them, which is basically information exchanges. So all these things are not things that like you would associate with Tom Nook. However, if we start to break down Tom Nook's character, I still think he falls in the same colour categories. For example, indentured servitude, well, it feels very black to me. Even for not demanding any interest on the debt to be repaid, simply owning enough land to be sold off or given away in exchange for loan plans isn't inherently black in its morals. There are plenty of rich characters within MTG that are not black, but the idea of owning so much land and going out of your way to approach newcomers to your town and offer loans for said land feels opportunistic and conniving. Black traits for sure. He is a woodland creature, and whilst within the confines of an Animal Crossing set, not every woodland creature would be green, sure, I do think in a wider environment, or even within an Animal Crossing set, the Tanuki themselves would be one of the green-aligned tribes. Then we have commerce, the trade, the loans, the mercantile skill set. Undoubtedly a blue thematic concern within Magic the Gathering. So I've landed on Bug. He isn't the same as Leopold, but he should probably hang out with him and he would get along with him. But before I land completely and concretely and put that forward as my case, I want to check the missing parts to see if it fits. I will concede that White's sense of community does seem appealing in the sense that his lending scheme is so laissez-faire and so relaxed, supposedly for the greater good. However, beyond that, no other White elements present themselves to me. He doesn't seem to have a strict regimen, he has no love of tradition or concerns with the afterlife like the Orzhov, for example. I'd also argue that the greater good is a green card, which means that actually we don't need White in his character to make that idea work. I also like this because it allows me to claim that he's green more so than just being a fucking Tanuki. And then, of course, absolutely fucking nothing about his character feels red in the slightest. Absolutely no way. So that's it. I present to you that Tom Nook is a bug-aligned character, or Sultai, as you'd call it, to give it a name. Although, I don't feel like he'd be aligned with the Sultai tribe if he was on Khans, because he's not, you know, running around with zombies on chains. Or maybe he would be if they give him some bells. In reality, what I'm saying is that he would hang out with the Trestians, and they seem to be the kind of people that he'd get involved with, the merchants, even when selling information instead of a shovel. Do you agree or disagree? Do you have examples within Magic that show us that Tom Nook should fit into a different colour pipe pairing, lose one of the colours I've said, add another colour? Do you think Tom Nook's red for some bizarre reason? Let me know down below. If you enjoyed this video, there's a few things you can do to support. The most obvious and explicit one is to go down and sign up to my Patreon, get involved with the Discord, and give me money every month. But more free than that, you can like the video down below, subscribe to the channel, and comment letting me know A, what you think of my where I've put Tom Nook, but B, also, do you like this video? And if so, where would you like me to go next? What pop culture icon or phenomenon do you want me to talk about in terms of Magic lore and colour pipe philosophy? I think I want to do the Doom Marine, because that's all big right now and I'm playing a lot of fucking Doom. But if you have other suggestions, leave them in the comment section below. Until next time, be good to one another, practice social distancing, and think of me next time you make an installment at Nook's Cranny. That's not even me making a joke. They literally call Nook Shop in, I think it's the original Animal Crossing, Nook's Cranny. And Nook and Cranny, Nook and Fanny, Fanny being a vagina in English. I see you, Animal Crossing. I fucking see you. Until next time, ta-ta for now.